Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Record Breakers. I'm Petey Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me is, of course, my team, my squad, my crew. We've got Patrick.
Hello.
We've got Brett.
I do what to my transistor?
And we've got Drew.
Hi.
Yeah. We're here, of course, to talk about music. We share music with each other periodically. All take turns sharing an album. And it is my turn. Like I said last week, we are hanging on the corner of 52nd and Broadway. We are hanging with Rancid's very recognizable, memorable, and Out Come the Wolves. It came out in 95. It was after they decided, after being shopped around, to stay with Epitaph. Very cool, very interesting record, to say the least. I'll start with Patrick. Patrick, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say everyone on this podcast could have probably reviewed this record without listening to it again. Because I remember distinctly in a hangout listening to Drew try to learn Maxwell Murder on bass. And I know Brett said that at least once in the group chat this week. And we're all sort of close enough to the same age that we all remember Rancid. And this specific album, it's a classic.
I would like to put out there that I can play up until halfway through, or I could play up to halfway through the solo of Maxwell Murder. My fingers get a little bit tied up halfway through. If I stop playing the song and just play the solo, I can get through most of it, but then I can't transition back out of it to get in the last chorus. Side note.
Yes.
Let's go on.
Yes.
There's very little to be ashamed with there, Drew. I can't play any of it.
Yes.
At least that was when I used to play all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Drew, like we were saying, what expectations did you have coming?
I may have tried to learn Maxwell Murder on bass when I was a teenager. This may be a band I'm familiar with.
Exactly.
I liked ska. I liked punk rock. Therefore, the things that Matt Freeman and the boys were doing back in the day were something I was familiar with.
Ipso facto. Brett, you're familiar with this album as well, right?
Oh, no. I honestly, this is probably the album that I've heard most repeatedly in my entire life, more than any other album. Not always because I have choice. This is one of the staples of 90s punk rock albums. If you've been in a skate park in the last 20 years, you've probably heard this entire album on loop. I'm sure this song haunts karaoke nights around the world where 30-somethings that used to be into it try and do a thing I'll describe later.
Yeah.
I was definitely a fan of the prior works of the members of this band, and I saw them live. I saw them the band that came after this band live. So I'm familiar.
Yeah. As far as my connection, I said like I said before. I don't know if I said it on the show, but I used the picture as a clue because when I first went to New York, I specifically went to. Let me see if I
Moonhooch.
No, you went. Yes, I went to Moonhooch. I went to. Where is it? God dang it! I went to 52nd and Broadway.
That was a menagerie of pictures that weren't exactly what you were wanting, but they were entertaining nonetheless.
Yes, I specifically went to 52nd and Broadway.
There you go.
When I first went to New York, specifically because of one of the songs on this album, and we'll get to that.
Award-winning podcast.
Yes. Nearly award-nominated podcast.
Yes.
If we hadn't bowed out ourselves. But yes, this album. This is like Drew said before. There's ska, there's punk. This album is very much a nice cross section of what Rancid sound was. This is very much that they are a staple East-Bay Punk band. Like this is very much an East-Bay Punk sound. You can see their influences laid bare. You can definitely listen to, if you pay attention, you can hear the big influences by groups like The Clash, specifically The Clash. You could definitely, of course, there's the very prominent touches of ska in there, ska sounds without necessarily always the horns, but just that Ska-Punk sound. The biggest element, of course, is one of the biggest elements, of course, is that bass sound throughout. That Matt Freeman stylings going throughout the album. But I'll let you guys do a little bit better job of describing the music. Patrick, what would be the themes elements that make up this album?
It's pretty much what you said. It's a early to mid 90s punk rock record with a heavy dose of ska influence thrown into it. If you've listened to Operation Ivy, you've heard what became this sound, and if you've listened to all the sort of later 90s pop punk, that all started here. Those bands all sort of interconnect in one form or another, to the point where Billy Joe Armstrong, prior to Lars joining the band, was invited to be the second guitar player in this band, but he decided to do Green Day because Dookie happened, and he sold a bajillion records.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think, and we've mentioned it a couple times, the thing that's especially impressive about Rancid is they have a really good bass player. Tim Armstrong's Tim Armstrong. He is not the greatest of guitarists, but he's one of the best punk rock guitarists.
Understatement of the...
So as part of my research, I ended up watching the video to Ruby Soho, and can we all just say Tim Armstrong playing guitar looks like an actor in a movie who doesn't know how to play guitar trying to play guitar? It literally looks like he's not playing. He just looks like he's waving his hands near the instrument and sound comes out. But that's what you get from a man named Lint.
He is one of them.
It's who was it? Lil Wayne, I believe, did that guitar playing thing for a while.
Yeah.
Where it was just sort of hanging there, and you're like, are you actually pushing those strings down, or what are you doing? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He the man once known as Lint, he has an interesting style about his guitar playing. And he's left-handed, so it's already a little awkward to watch, but yeah. But this is, if you were going to write a college course in punk rock, this album would be in it. It's very, very influential. It's very, very much a time capsule of what was happening in 1995, and it's one of the best examples of that part of the genre.
Drew, what would be the themes elements that make up this record?
There are some records that when we review them, I don't know if I can be 100% objective, just because of where they hit me in my life. This was huge in my life. Rancid in general, not only their self-titled record and this record are probably the ones that are most influential to me, growing up from them. And this one especially, there was, like I said, there's a lot of ska influence in there, and weird, I like ska music. But there's still a lot of that punk edge. There's the heroin mushmouth that is certain singers of this band that we were actually discussing his personal possible problems.
So not quite as heroin mushmouthy, I think, in this album, but as he was in the future.
Mushmouth.
God, let the dominoes fall.
I would like to hear Mushmouth from Fat Elvis.
Yes.
Do some
Mushmouth in a punk rock band would be awesome.
Yes.
But no, this record, and Rancid in particular for punk bands in general, and why this was kind of awesome, was they had sort of actually a good fidelity to them. You coming out and coming into this era was the era where all of a sudden you could have a label like Epitaph that had just enough money to get good sounding records out of bands. And like that was fine. Like they were able to put that money together because the prices started coming down in the 90s, and now they're like dirt cheap, and like labels aren't even necessary to make a good sound anymore, blah 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 blah. But like this was like starting to get that way. You have a lot of good roots ska sounds sort of pushing up every so often with this punk edge, but come on, if like Matt Freeman's one of the greatest, like to me, one of the greatest musicians in the punk rock scene, period. The bass lines are just great. The way he uses like not only walking bass lines, but like crazy runs. The fact that he did not allow himself to be sort of cornered in what a lot of punk bassists do, which is I'm going to ride the root of every chord and just make it thicker. Like he didn't do that. He didn't want to be a part of that. And because of that, you hear so much more movement and you hear so much more to it. But it was also still a band that like, while it still had that credibility to it and still had the love from like a lot of that underground thing, it was still a band that like Pat said, Billy Joe was almost in it. Think about that for a second. Like they toured with Blink-182. They had Offspring help them on records. Like this is a band that like never cared about like the hierarchy, but like was always just there doing what they wanted to do after Op Ivy, which was this, for better or worse for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, Brett. How would you sum things up about this record?
Well, you know, what hasn't been said. Tim Armstrong has the gravelly Quaalude mouth, but if you can't follow that, luckily he's only half the vocals, give or take. You know, Lars Fredriksson does a pretty good job of either harmonizing or actually singing what they're supposed to be singing together. Either way, it works.
Actually attempting notes. This is true.
Yeah, he's a whole lot better sounding when he's, you know, I'll always hang out with you. Yeah, I'm just going to stop there. If you want to sound really good, sing along with somebody who's not very good. It'll make you be amazing. Yeah. You know, as plectrum bass punks bass slingers, you know, you get Mr. Matt is pretty good. He on a style of a subgenre of a subgenre that's normally pretty simple. Having some complexity in the low end really fattens up the songs quite a bit. You know, it's stylistically, it's you know, it's kind of like Op Ivy that's all growed up with more polish, one would say. You know, they weren't blazing new ground. You know, you don't get like machine gun drums like Pennywise or No Effect. You don't get crazy vulgarity or singing about having relations with people at the morgue. You know, this isn't that side of the genre. You know, this is rock ballad. This is the boss does punk ska. You know, most of the songs are ballads. You know, it's I'm really shocked at how different it is from the rest of the music that I was listening to at the time. You know, this album came out right after they buried grunge, and the punk rock that was coming out around that time was a whole lot different, especially the stuff that I was listening to. So, you know, this was kind of a journey of you know, looking into my closet and seeing my old T-shirts. But yeah, that pretty much sums things up. When we get into songs, you know, I should say there's not a whole lot of variety in the sounds of the songs. The songs pretty much follow formula. You can spot a Rancid song from a mile away, even if there was no Mushmouth sings the punk. But yeah, let's get into some songs and we can break it down a little further.
Yeah, let's get into some songs. There's the major hits like Time Bomb and Ruby Soho, and of course Roots Radicals. You know, those we can talk about. Let's talk about some of the other songs. Let's do the Record Breakers thing. talk about Maxwell Murder. The song that was aforementioned, the song that Drew tried to learn, and very much so because it does several things. It introduces you to Rancid. It does a great job of setting the pace of the album, not just the the vocals, the guitars, but also the bass, and it showcases well and has one of the wildest bass solos you'll hear probably in a lot of places. Just or at least as wild as you would expect on a punk rock record, just coming out of nowhere.
You're gonna have Bootsy walk in his pink boots, playing bass lines for him. But if we're grading on a curve, yes, Petey is correct.
Yes,
you do not expect it.
Yeah, it's just unexpected. It's pretty fantastic. We of course the aforementioned lyric, hanging on the corner of 52nd Broadway, is starring in a song called Olympia, Washington, which is another fantastic, it's quintessential Rancid song. Does a good job of kind of like doing a little fun storytelling. It's catchy as all hell. It's fun to listen to and fun to kind of jump around and pump your fists to it. And like I said, it inspired me to specifically stand on the corner of 52nd and Broadway and take that selfie before we coined the term selfies back in 2008. It's pretty fantastic. And of course that there's a couple of songs that showcase that ska sound, including a song like Daily Silly Train. Daily City Train.
It is a silly train. That is correct.
It does a fantastic job of showcasing that Ska-Punk sound, that ska sound, that the quintessential sound. It's a really great showcase of that. Really good feel, really fun to listen to. But yeah, enough about what I'm picking. Let's talk about you guys. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I'll talk about Maxwell Murder 2 because it is just one of the best bass lines in punk, and it's got a bass solo which there aren't enough of. It's like the best like speedy picked out bass solos since Got the Time by Anthrax. It has that sort of like I'm just beating the shit out of it sort of vibe going on. The hits on this record are all well known, but I'm going to talk about one specifically because of my history with it, Ruby Soho. I downloaded that shit over Napster when Napster was still a thing. Like I remember it, and I remember downloading it. It was one of the. I was just getting into punk. I was not made of money, so I couldn't go buy every punk record ever written. So I had Napster.
$30 CDs.
Yeah, what happens? So I was like told, oh, you need to listen to this. Oh, you need to listen to this by various friends between school and AOL Instant Messenger. Yes, that's how old I am. And this was one of them, and I loved it back then. And I remember putting it on MP3 CDs when that was how you could get more than 20 stuff on a burnt CD. If you had the right kind of Discman, I remember having it on my first iPod. Like that song sticks with me now. It musically, it's punk doesn't have a whole lot of dynamic changes usually, and this song kind of does. It's very, very quiet during the verses, and then gets all loud and yelly during the chorus, which is not an unused thing, but there's an actual dynamic change. And,
in punk rock, there's usually, as Charlie Sheen would say, one speed.
Yeah,
not go.
Yeah,
and
blow,
go.
Yeah.
Blow. It would be blow. That would be Charlie Sheen speed.
That would be if you were signed to Fat Records, but that was
wow, calling them kids out.
I think they called themselves out.
Yep. And then She's Automatic, which is a just dead simple punk song, and it's the dumbest thing, but again, most punk rock is just literally a punk rock drum kit for 80% of bands is a bass drum, a snare drum, some hi-hats, and that's literally all you need. You can make a punk record. This is clever use of a ride cymbal during the chorus, and it's the sort of thing that doesn't matter to anyone but me. But it's like the difference between Rancid and a lot of punk bands is that they would would make different choices musically, a lot because of their ska influence, and a lot because members of the band not named Tim are fairly okay musicians. Lars really isn't that spectacular either, I guess.
Ain't none of them that spectacular except for the guy behind the bass fiddle.
Yeah. Yeah. But the drums are really, really solid on that song, and I just think it's a fun song.
Yeah.
And this is one of those records where you could do the Drew thing and talk about 75% of the songs on the record, because they all are pretty fucking
Guess
good.
what I'm talking about for? Fuck you guys.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
It's the truth.
When Drew brings a ska record and he has to go over 7 of the 10 songs on it.
Yeah. To be fair, he could go through a lot of songs before he gets to a majority.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's also like, 19 fucking
weird.
tracks?
When you have an album where most of the songs are like 2 minutes and 30 seconds long,
It's a punk rock record that lasts 50 minutes. It's not 33 and out. Like,
yes.
That's almost impressive.
It's a double album, basically.
Yes.
It's just that, there's enough for you can fit it on one disc, so it can't be a double album anymore. Also, to his credit, Fat Mike is detoxing. So,
is he?
According to his Instagram,
it's economical that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you add the phrase again, or is this actually the first time he's actually bothered to go to rehab?
He didn't go to rehab. He's detoxing. At least that's his. I would say to his insistent terminology. Yeah,
a juice cleanse.
Yeah, he's doing more of a thing, But yes,
these guys are all old.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
including Fat Mike.
Yes.
Also, Fat Mike shouldn't be all that old, but blow, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And pills.
A hell of a drug.
I mean, he did a song.
He is 49 years old. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drew.
He's 49, and he's dragging ass for 49. Let's be fair.
Ass.
49, not that terribly old,
yes.
unless you've done what Fat Mike has done.
Yeah. Drew, let's talk about those 4 songs.
Yeah, let's talk about the 4 I've got. Maxwell Murder. I've got to talk about Maxwell Murder because I'm a bass player. There's a couple of things I have to talk about. The riffs in it are just fun. One, they're fun to play. They're fun to listen to. The chorus run in it is just powerful. And then the solo just fucking is nuts. Like, the solo is just all over the place. It all fits, and it's all really clean. And, I've seen videos of, live shows where they let him, ad-lib. And this song is usually, it's, about 2 minutes. And,
a minute and a half.
Minute and a half.
Yeah.
The live recordings I see allow him almost the length of the song to do a solo in, just because it's screw it, let's do that. And then Tim spins in a corner because he's super high. But it's just a great showcase for that stuff. Roots Radical, I want to mention, it's got the punk rock anthem lyrics with the patented Rancid's gonna call out old school ska music because it's Rancid, and that's what they do. Just Desmond Decker's name shows up for no apparent reason. But it's got this light bouncy rhythm dance line to it that's really, really fun. Ruby Soho I'm also gonna mention, and I'm gonna mention it because of the drop that Pat talked about specifically. There's a groove to those verses that's great, and with the type of vocals you get out of Lars and Tim, this type of song with the verse sort of going quiet and the echoes of reggae and it all being this story, this sort of sad story in the verses coming through, it shouldn't work because their singing's not good per se. It's not classically great, but it just works because it's kind of cool and it kind of is something separate. And they, to their credit, they're writing his those type of stories. I think Rancid has always been fine with. They've always been fun to me personally. And then the one I want to mention is As Wicked, and I want to mention As Wicked because As Wicked does something really, really cool. To me, this is the showcase. As Wicked, out of all the Rancid songs, is the perfect litmus test of why Matt Freeman specifically is so important to this band. Without Matt Freeman, you take his bass playing out of it and you put any other punk rock bassist in there, this song is mediocre at best, right? But something about his touch on bass and what he's doing and like his thought process in it is something that's awesome. And it's not like it's a constant rush of fast notes. It's not like it's constant runs and walks, but it's the right touches at the right times that really push that forward, that I think Matt Freeman deserves a lot of credit for. Not only in a lot of these songs, but in that one specifically, for like just sort of having that right feel to it.
Brett, what will be some of the key tracks for you?
You put any other bassist from punk rock, Fat Mike did a horrible job of the first song that I'm going to bring up. That first song that I'm going to talk about is Olympia La. This is.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the NoFX Rancid split.
Yeah, they did a split record where, holy crap, there are some things the Fat Mike ain't needing to be doing. But you know, it's still for everyone to hear. But yeah, it's probably one of my favorite Rancid songs, just because of how Lars is singing and Tim's slobbering sort of goes together. You know, the song could stand on its own, but this is one of those songs that has the bass. It's got a really neat walking bass line that adds a ton to it. You know, and I know everybody's been waiting with bated breath. The sproing of this album goes to the wood block that they play in the back of it. There's like a little wood block that greets you every time. Were you being dumb Donald there with your hat pulled down over your eyes, Drew? You know, you have mush mouth and dumb Donald. Okay, just check. And because you guys have been beaten off to a bunch of songs, I'll just have two. Because really, do we need to repeat the same stuff all the time?
Yes.
Daily Silly Train. I'm gonna bring up Daily Silly Train because it's one of them Drew songs. It's the lyrics pretty much speak for themselves. They put them together with a pretty good bass and organ line. Guitar on the upstroke. The drums give a jaunty feel for a song that really isn't all that jaunty. Drew, I've got a boot I'm going to give to you. It's going to come in the mail. There's some slam poetry in this album that I'm not going to bring up. You're going to have to find that for yourself. But yeah, the really when it comes down to for me is like a lot of these songs are put together with the same formula. They did it in a very good way. They did it successfully. But those are the two songs that when I hear the album, especially Olympia Washington, that's to me the song of the album that has not been beaten to the fucking dirt.
Yeah. Those are pretty fantastic songs. Let's bring it back around the horn for some conclusive thoughts. Patrick, what would be your conclusive thoughts on the album as a whole?
I feel like it's required listening as a music fan. If you're going to put you're going to make the book on punk rock, this is in it. It's an important moment in the genre, and it's a pretty good record. It's one of those ones where there's no reason not to just hit play at the beginning and enjoy it for 50 minutes. It's good. Most of the songs are good. Tim Armstrong sings exactly like Tim Armstrong always has. And it's simultaneously endearing and annoying, but it's also punk rock, so it's kind of supposed to be. Great bass lines throughout, as we've talked about repeatedly. It's really fun. It's one of those albums that's a classic for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
This album is something that, I just feel anyone who says they've been into punk rock or they like punk rock, they've heard already. This is one of those softballs across the plate that we get every once in a while. And it's absolutely fine that we get those softballs. I enjoy these shows just as much as any of the other shows we do. But it's just something that I think that if you're thinking about getting into punk rock, right, and you don't
Throw
mind.
a rise ball at you.
That's right.
Um,
The underhand knuckleball equivalent that I don't remember the name of.
God damn it.
It's just slow pitch, Drew. Softballs are big, but I still probably couldn't hit one.
As you were saying.
Yeah, sorry.
Look, I'm bad with my baseball metaphors. I'm wearing a
Softball
basketball hat. Whatever.
The rise ball.
So the thing about it is that if you have thought about like, what's this punk rock thing about, or
Who is ever? Well, what is this punk rock?
what is
What's
this
this?
punk rock?
Let me punch that into the
you
Google
speak
machine.
of.
If you've thought about getting into the genre before and you don't mind the things we say about maybe the vocal quality and tonality is something that is a little bit rough around the edges on purpose, and you're okay with that, this is, I think, an album that's very easy to sort of jump into and see, like, okay, like, what was 90s punk rock like besides the big names that came out of the 90s punk rock that then later went on to make Garbage. And make Garbage not the one with the redheaded lead singer, the Garbage as in Hot Garbage.
Shoot trash.
Gotcha before you could say anything, Brett, sorry. So this is something that I think Rancid came out of the 90s and didn't completely screw the pooch, I think. So going back and listening to And Out Come the Wolves again was like putting on that like teenager like coat again, just like going back home to like what I remember of being like a punk ass teen and just like thinking I was cooler than everybody else because I knew punk rock. Like it was that sort of thing again,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with going back to that every now and again.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
Well, if you aren't into the style of the few Rancid songs that I'm sure you've likely met in your journeys, you're probably not likely to find anything different enough to make you a huge fan. I think this is an album that whether you like it or not, you're probably going to hear. So it's just one of those things that you'll be at a party sometime and somebody will put this on. I know I was at those parties. If you're completely unfamiliar, this is probably the best place to start to understand what all those T-shirts at Hot Topic meant.
Yeah. I had one.
Yeah. A lot of people did. I'm happy that I was around when this album was, fresh, and the memories will be with me forever. There's some pretty good ones where this album is the soundtrack to, but I almost wish I didn't go back and listen to it because this album has aged about as much as I have, and it's sort of my memories. But the reason why I don't bring some of my favorite albums to this show is so that I can be blissfully ignorant of how things have changed and I have changed. And this is one of those where, I'm kind of glad I went back, but it would have been nice not to, just to be, ignorant of the fact that all these songs are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and there's a throughput. But yeah, that's true. But yeah, this album is fantastic and fun, and there's some good songs. There's some fantastically good songs on here, and it's a great journey into what was coming out of punk rock music in the 90s, and what was coming out of East-Bay in the 90s. It's just fantastic stuff. It's a really good record. These aren't the best singers in the world. They're not the best guitar players in the world. Not the best drummer. Pretty damn good bassist. But I think it's a great example of a mantra that I would say I would currently attribute to one K-Popalypse, the K-pop blogger, which is that good songs beat technical skills any day of the week. If you got good songs, don't need to be a classically trained nothing. They're still good songs. Just like technical skills don't save bad songs. If these were bad, if they were perfect instrument players, and they were playing bad songs, they would still be bad songs. So, these are some damn good songs. And they played them as they needed to. So yeah, go listen to this album. Release the Hounds. Out come the wolves.
Who let the dogs out there?
Who? Mitt Romney.
Yes. But yeah, that brings us to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews. We talk about the album in poetic form. Speaking of slang poetry. Though this is not slang poetry, it's a haiku. Let's start with Drew. Drew, what is your haiku?
All of my ska love and all of my love of punk, beautifully mashed.
Patrick, what is your haiku?
Punk and ska classic from a man once known as Lint, still holds up today.
Brett, what is your haiku?
A real must listen soundtrack of the old skate park, showing some gray hairs.
They all are. I think that was a joke by Henry Rollins that he said like that's how you know the true punks are. They're the ones with the gray hairs. But yeah, my haiku. An East-Bay classic from a frantic blends of punk rock styles to pump your fist to. And that is Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Play along with us. Follow along with us at home. On that Spotify playlist. Which presumably is going to be next week's pick, which is courtesy of Patrick. Patrick, what do you got for us next week?
So I'm going midwesterly, vaguely emo music. A band from Brett's neck of the woods, a band called Chamberlain, and their album "The Moon My Saddle."
Never heard of them.
Yes. Look forward to that. But that is next week, and this is this week. You can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at HIBBARD, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at X. I'm at PD Rave. The show is 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is the email. You can email us at. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Or in iTunes, Stitcher. All over the place. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
And keep an eye out for pretty soon
Dumb
to
shit.
Korea.
Dumb shit coming. Incoming dumb shit.
Upcoming dumb shit. Also, in like from the time this is released in a couple weeks, I'll be in Korea, so keep an eye out for that, for stuff from there.